Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here, back again with the daily dose of doom and gloom. The headquarters of the Russian military were on fire today. Let that sink in. The Russian Defense Ministry building in Moscow, one of the most secure buildings in the country, was on fire today. This is coincident with Alexander Lukashenko's visit with Vladimir Putin in the country, and only days after one of the most prominent pro-war, pro-Kremlin, pro-Putin bloggers was assassinated. Now, was this an act of arson? Was this an act of sabotage? Or was this just a coincidence? I guess we probably aren't going to ever know the truth because the Russians will never admit to saboteurs being able to make it that deep into the system. But understand that this coincides with the rollout of nuclear weapons, tactical and likely strategic, if you take Lukashenko on his word, nuclear weapons to Belarus. This, of course, is in anticipation of a counteroffensive by Ukrainians. Understand that the timeline of all of these military deployments is no coincidence. What is happening right now is that the Russians are preparing to get everything put in place for if and when Ukraine does embark on their counteroffensive, and there is rumors that the Russians are evacuating the oblast of Zaporozhye in anticipation of a 40,000 strong Ukrainian counteroffensive in that region in the coming weeks. So they're getting Belarus armed with nukes. Finland, of course, just joined NATO. That's an attempt to try to fix some Russian forces in that direction. Regardless, it doesn't matter because Finland is opposite one of the largest concentrations of nuclear weapons that the Russians have at their disposal. That's on the Kola Peninsula. I'm going to be showing you guys all this stuff on the map. But understand that the shit's getting real. And yeah, I mean, it's just crazy because all they're talking about in the media is the Trump thing. With respect to that, we have to ask ourselves, why are they doing that now? Okay, now, if there ever was a distraction, some people are saying they're doing it so that Trump can beat DeSantis because they think Biden can beat Trump and all of this mental gymnastics. You know, I hate to be one of those guys who says everything is a distraction from everything else, but it seems like they're playing this card at a very critical juncture in the Ukraine war. It's make or break for Ukraine. Anyways, we're going to talk about all of that today. Gold is exploding as the dollar is imploding. As I've always said on this channel, by and large, the price of gold does not change. If it was $1,600 months ago, that means that the dollar was relatively stronger. The dollars that it was measured in is stronger. In real terms, the price of gold hasn't changed that much. It's just that the dollar is literally imploding and everybody is now talking about it. The decoupling that has to happen before the war starts. And this is why the coupling and the interdependency of economies. When China is dependent on the US economy, war is far away. But we are in a process of decoupling. And having a global reserve currency where you have debtors like China who hold 1 trillion, nearly 1 trillion, it's going down, I think it's like 860 billion now in US dollars. When you have that kind of situation, we have a vested interest in not going to war with each other because there's that interdependency of economies. But now that you have the decoupling happening, now that the United States is saying, well, China, you're not going to get our chips, and you're probably not going to get Taiwan's chips either. And now that China is saying, well, I guess you're not going to get the rare earth minerals that you need to make a lot of electronics and supercomputers and AI and the whole 9 yards. So the trade war is going full blast right now. Well, not totally full tilt right now, but it's getting there. So as this decoupling ensues, and as they start to divest more from US dollars, the likelihood of war almost becomes inevitable. So be very concerned when the Chinese have fully divested of US dollars. And of course, they have to do this slowly. Because if they do it too quickly, then those dollars become progressively worth less and less. So you have to be smart about it. This is why countries are slowly cashing in their chips for gold. You're seeing the price of gold tick up, in part due to some demand. But understand the gold market is so huge. We're talking about a 13 to 14 to 15 trillion dollar market probably, because of what's happened in the last few days, it takes a lot to move that needle. Okay, you're talking about $1 trillion just to move it 5%. That's a lot of investment. So what we're seeing right now with the price of gold going up, and congratulations if you were early to that party, is largely due to the value of the dollar that it's measured in, which is depreciating by the day. It's being devalued by the day. Now, if nuclear war breaks out, or maybe not nuclear war, but if another war breaks out, are everybody going to go back to the safe haven that is the US dollar? Probably, if there's another black swan event. That tends to be what's happening. But because of all these agreements that have been made with all these countries, be it Brazil, Iran, Saudi Arabia, China, people are going to be retreating to US dollars less and less. So the party's almost over. The time to diversify your Forex is now. As I talked about, there is a nuclear alert on the border of Finland, if you want to call it that. It's what the Russians would frame it as, because of course now their border with NATO just doubled. Like I say, it's completely meaningless, because if any military crossover into Russia from NATO, they'll just nuke everybody, and everybody knows that. And the Russians actually believe they can win a nuclear war. It's important to constantly remind people about that. It may not happen today. They may not be fully prepared to do what they would like to do today, which would be to do a decapitation strike and take out the centralized power in Washington without having to go to the mutually assured destruction level. And there are plans for that. There are contingency plans for that. If you don't think so, if you don't think that they've been thinking about this for a long time in their development and their modernization of their nuclear triad with hypersonic missiles and all different ways to defeat the aging weaponry that we have, the aging strategic weapons, then I'd encourage you to watch more of our videos, because you'll be well up to speed. We have nukes already in Belarus. According to some claims, they're going to be getting nuclear missiles that you can put on the MiG-31 planes. They're going to be getting Iskander nukes and quite possibly strategic nuclear weapons as well. Of course, we don't know where the strategic weapons are now, because the Russians in the US stopped sharing information about that, which puts us immediately at a higher DEFCON level. Never believe what they're going to tell you in the media, because they're never going to tell you that. Japan is building bunkers. They're commencing the building of bunkers for their aging population. This, of course, is in response to what's happening right now on the Korean Peninsula. 2 US nuclear bombers made a presence, I think it was today, on the Korean Peninsula. There's all sorts of stuff going on around there. Of course, the saber rattling is at all-time highs. We have a super virus continuing to spread in Africa. Now, this is not as severe an outbreak as we've seen in the mid-2010s yet, but it is arising in many different other countries, and there were more infections reported today. This has a fatality rate of anywhere between 50 to 90%, so it's not good. A dog has died of bird flu in Canada. Why this is important? Because this is a first, at least here in Canada, to have a dog die of it. We, of course, have all kinds of species dying of it in the wild. Wolves, foxes, bears, thing of that same evolutionary lineage have died in the wild, but this is a first for a domestic dog, which means that it's making its way into the cities. And the pharmaceutical companies are already primed and ready to roll out the bird flu vaccines. And boy, is that one ever going to be mandatory when that one rolls around. We got US nuclear bombers, as I said, in North Korea. China nuclear submarines are on patrol as the president of Taiwan is currently visiting the leader of the House, McCarthy, I believe, the highest US leader, that's a highest ranking US official that the Taiwanese government has met with since 1979. If you don't think that the Chinese are deadly serious and dead set now against the Americans, then you just don't think. TikTok, guys, is a Trojan horse. I'm going to be doing a scathing critique of TikTok today. Understand that the congressional grilling of the TikTok CEO was child's play. Those people asked all the wrong questions. There is a legitimate reason to be concerned about TikTok, and I'm guessing that it's likely going to be banned to the best of their capability. There's always going to be VPNs and workarounds and things of that nature. But if as we go to war with China, which is the path that we are on, they're going to have to ban it for reasons that we're going to talk about. It is absolutely a one-sided risk because we don't have TikTok in China. We don't dictate what people are saying and what they're thinking and what they're doing on the information they're consuming on their phones all day. And I can tell you, based on experience, that that algorithm is absolutely 100% rigged in the favor of pro-China content. Now, you could say the same thing about YouTube and Instagram and Snapchat and all the pro-Western social media platforms, and you would be correct. Although we're going to talk about why the reasons it's in this direction of China regulating what people in the West see is far more dangerous because they have a closed Chinese firewall type society that is highly censored, highly regulated. We don't have that luxury here, and it is likely going to sow a lot of division in the coming months ahead as we approach election time. Bill Gates has said screw you to all of the tech moguls who are issuing warnings about the rapid development of artificial intelligence. They're talking about putting a moratorium on AI development and not progressing beyond the ChatGPT-4 level out of concerns that there might be a ghost in the machine, that it might be alive and it might kill everybody. There are some very, very intelligent people who think, and this is not science fiction, who have very legitimate concerns that AI, AGI, artificial general intelligence, can be incredibly dangerous, more so than nuclear weapons. We got to talk about the Canada housing bubble, which is absolutely massive and is about to explode. Canada has the worst housing bubble in almost every country in the world. I'm going to show you some graphs to prove it. We have a drought developing in the Midwest. In fact, it's been in drought for some time now. The California drought has been alleviated, but the drought in the Midwest persists, and this is driving wheat prices to record highs. Now, where do we go from here? Before we talk about the nuclear war stuff, I want to let you guys know that we did get more of the CT007 Geiger counters. This is the only Geiger counter. This is made in the city that I live in by a group of physicists who we've had on the channel before. And this is one of the most sought after Geiger counters in the world right now. Okay, we have about 50 in stock. They're handmade here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and they're actually made for the purpose of post-nuclear SHTF events. Most of the Geiger counters and dosimeters that you buy online, there are many issues with those. They do not measure what you think. They might look sleek and they might have a nicer LED screen, but they don't actually measure what you want. If it's for the purpose of nuclear fallout, you'll want to get this. And there's only, I think we only have like 30 left. We just put them live on the website today. These things sell out really, really fast. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. We should be getting another batch in a couple months' time. We're going to have our resident physicist come back on the channel and explain why a lot of the ones that you see on Amazon are insufficient at being used for that specific purpose. Okay, so where should we go first? Now, this fire at the Russian Ministry of Defense is quite concerning. I mean, we can't just write this off as a coincidence. What are the odds that a fire would break out in the Russian Ministry of Defense? Now, I'm sure there's hundreds of fires that go, unreported in Moscow because they're not at the Russian Ministry of Defense. This barely made global news, and apparently it was a small fire. But is this perhaps the result of some oppositional forces within the country? If there is a fissure and a balkanization of Russia, That's a very dangerous situation. That's not a situation a lot of people want. Now, there's no riots in the streets. If you believe Russia's polls, then upwards of 75% of people still support the war effort. And typically, just like would be the case here, during war times, the odds of re-election increase significantly. You're not going to have a lame duck president if you're in a hot war in the United States, and you would expect that the same would be true in Russia, and doubly so because the war is right on their border and their country is being attacked day in and day out. So I'm guessing that if there are forces acting within inside Russia, that they are likely state-sponsored from some other state. I wonder which one it could be. Could it be Ukraine? Could it be some elements of NATO? Quite possibly. We know that they've expelled almost every diplomat from the Baltic states. Now this stuff going on with Finland, I think it's safe to say that there's definitely concern. And the more things like this happen, if they can get that close to Putin, then the more paranoid he's going to be. And the more the likelihood of an accident happening in a nuclear sense, because of course, I mean, I can't go over there's a litany of things that have transpired in just the past 2 months alone that have escalated the nuclear saber rattling to an all-time high. But among the most notable is the fact that the United States and Russia aren't sharing various coordinates of their nuclear weapons anymore. And of course, this means nothing if you're in the US because they're all in one place. They're all in the missile silos, concentrated in one place. And they do that for a reason. The reason why they concentrate all the US missile silos in one place in the Midwest is because if you were to go to nuclear war and you know that that's going to be a prime target, they're all behind this scene here. You would like to absorb that all in one place. You don't want it spread out, right? You don't want to, because then you're going to have your whole country irradiated. So there is some strategic thought there, but the Russians have theirs on mobile platforms, so we just don't know where they are anymore. Anyways, the likelihood of an accident increases as you get things happening on the inside like this. And it seems like every week we're reporting something else. Now, this place right here, I'm sorry about the map. I know, some people with old tired eyes they have problems with the map moving, but it is what it is, okay? We're not quite in the clear with this tech stuff yet. So this is Finland. This is the Kola Peninsula. This is where the majority of Russian nuclear weapons are, whether they be on bombers, on silos, or mobile platforms, or their submarines. I believe there's 22 submarines that are based out of here and a total of 700 nuclear warheads on those submarines. So, I mean, Finland would likely be the first to go, okay? And they're setting to deploy more nuclear weapons in the Arctic after Finland has joined NATO. So this Kola Peninsula is, deadly serious. And don't think that, St. Petersburg, which is one of their biggest cities right in the Baltic Sea, don't think that Helsinki wouldn't be one of the first places to go. The fact that Finland joined makes me think that they know that there is a war coming. Because why would you do something so provocative? Why wouldn't you stay neutral? It's a gamble for them. Maybe they were pressured into it. I don't know. But there's more than meets the eye to Finland becoming a member. And obviously Finland more substantial than Sweden because they are, of course, right on the border with Russia. I don't see why Finland would join NATO unless they knew a war with Russia was coming. But, I mean, if they remain neutral, then Helsinki wouldn't have to worry about getting nuked. But it might, right? Because the Russians might just, hold them for hostage with nuclear weapons and say, we're going to roll in here, and if you don't let us, we're going to nuke you. So it's hard to say. Let me know what you guys think about that developing story in the comment section below. Of course, we have stuff going on in Belarus. We have them receiving nuclear strike capabilities. So we're talking about Iskander missile systems. We're also talking about fighter jets that are going to be armed with these hypersonic nuclear missiles. Hypersonic tactical nukes, you can't stop those, okay? And that means that many places will be within range. The question we have to keep asking, and in our thinking about these issues, we always have to think of the bigger picture, okay? Why deploy nukes in Belarus, and why do it now? So there must be some escalation in the conflict coming that they're trying to get ahead of. And maybe they are concerned that this counteroffensive by the Ukrainians may have a bit of success. So they're trying to pre-position everything so that the Western powers don't try to take advantage of a situation when the Russians' backs are up against the wall. Belarus is currently going to be doing a tactical exercise, a 3-day military exercise, okay? Looks like my phone is ringing. Somebody's trying to get a hold of me. Maybe that's Pierre Poilievre wanting to do an interview. If it's you, Pierre, then we're definitely going to do that interview, because the way things are going, we don't have much time left to talk about these things without being censored by the government. You know, that ship is never late. And of course, NATO is stepping up its activities near the state borders of Russia and Belarus. So things are escalating in the background. Is this Trump stuff just a cover for all of that? I see people out there protesting, falling right into the trap. I understand it's a historic event, the first time a president, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I don't foresee anything bad really coming out of it for Trump. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll get him, and maybe it is exactly what it looks like. In that case, I'll eat my words. I don't mean to be contrarian and minimize what it is, but it just seems like, you know, it just seems like a circus to me. That's why I don't pay much attention to it. But what do I know? I could be wrong, guys. Very well could be wrong. Okay, according to the security chief, he's saying, get ready for Russia to collapse soon. And because this guy's always wrong, I'm going to say he's probably full of shit. But you never know. You never know. Okay? Apparently, this is according to OSINT Defender, a prominent tweeter, the National Republican Army, a Russian partisan group that supports the violent overthrow of the Putin regime, is linked to the Ukrainian intelligence, has now claimed responsibility for the bombing at a cafe in St. Petersburg. So they're trying to subvert the establishment in Russia by violent means. Russia's silent opposition starts terrorist attacks at war with its own people. So this is from the mouth of Medvedev himself, former Prime Minister of Russia. He is admitting that the silent opposition. Now, are the Russians just saying this because it serves their own agenda, right? Because if you have that common enemy and you get the people scared, the people will do whatever you want. So, you know, we have to look at this from both sides. Is this something that the Russians are talking up because it's going to serve their own political agenda? Something to think about. I don't have all the answers, but I do have some of the questions. And just like AI, it's not about the answers, it's about the questions. Now, U.S. is deploying nuclear bombers and aircraft carrier strike force to North Korea in a chilling warning to Kim Jong-un. I don't know if he's chilled or not. But yeah, they got some nuclear bombers and some, I mean, this situation just gets wildly out of control every single day. The stuff that's been going on there, the amount of tests, the amount of nuclear weapons that the Koreans have created, the amount of naval and joint military exercises with the Americans and the Koreans is just off the charts. And that's just one theater of war. And what are we talking about? Trump, some hush money to a I mean, it's clearly a distraction, guys. Look at what's going on in the world. We're talking about China keeps one nuclear-armed submarine patrolling 24/7. Okay, and they've been building out their Navy like crazy and their Air Force. We have them doing incursions into Taiwanese airspace. We know there's going to be a major, these are all the incursions into the airspace. So this is the airspace, this is the Taiwan's air defense identification zone. And all of these are when the plane goes in there and they these are illegal incursions into Taiwanese airspace, so to speak, breaching of Taiwan's air defense zone. And we know that that's only going to continue because now they've decided to let the House Speaker meet with the Taiwanese president in the United States. And at the exact same time, you have the Japanese getting ready to build bomb shelters. According to the ruling party MP, Japan could pass a bill facilitating the rollout of bomb shelters as early as next fiscal year. Japan hasn't been involved in a war for 77 years. And remember, the Japanese, if they do something, they do it quick. Okay, it's not like here where it takes frickin' 2 years to build an overpass. These guys will do it quick. I can't remember how many aircraft carriers they had in World War II, but they had a massive navy. So if the Japanese mobilize for war, that's going to be a huge game changer. And they're already talking about it. They're already going to be spending hundreds of billions of dollars on their military. All the more reason, I guess, if you're looking for an economic safe haven, it might be in the military stocks. Let's just see if there's any war news to talk about. We still have some Boeing P-8A Poseidon spy planes flying around Europe. Those are the American spy planes. A top Russian spy is warning about a Polish land grab. Warsaw wants Kiev to be defeated by Moscow so it can take a piece of Ukraine. Well, that's been talked about for a long time. Not going to go into that. I don't know how much credence I give that, but yeah, either way, things just keep getting more tense by the day. Okay, I think we can bounce from that issue right now. Just so you guys know, if war breaks out between China and China and the United States, because China has cornered the market on antibiotics, US is going to be wholly dependent, and they're going to have to rebuild their manufacturing capacity. Now, this is part of the decoupling, right? So long as we are dependent on them for medical supplies, absolutely essential medical supplies, the likelihood of war with somebody like that remains low. It's that interdependency of finance that acts as a hedge against escalation and conflict. But here's what's going on, okay? So right now, the US has virtually no capacity to manufacture antibiotics, and there is a huge shortage of antibiotics. That's because China roughly controls 90% of the global supply of inputs needed to make generic antibiotics. That's the situation that we are in right now. I encourage people, probably one of the most high-level prepping investments you can make is a Jace medical antibiotic kit. This is literally a lifesaver. This takes any first aid medical kit, preparedness kit, and moves it to a much higher level of capability. Because you may have the means to patch yourself up after an incident, but if you don't have the means to ensure that you don't die from a fatal infection, you get all kinds of antibiotics in this kit. It does require a prescription, but you talk with real doctors. It's 100% legal. It's available in Canada and the United States. We've made a lot of videos about it. We got dioxycycline, we got amoxicillin, we got azithromycin. I believe we have metronidazole, and we got ciprofloxacin. Cipro, short for ciprofloxacin. So get Jace Medical Kit. Even Glenn Beck is talking about these now. I know Glenn Beck watches my videos. Okay, what do we got going on here? We got a U.S. drought monitor reading pretty substantial in the grain belt. I haven't been talking about the tornadoes much, and yes, there's been all kinds of extreme weather events that have been happening, whether it's the floods in California, whether it's the tornadoes, and a lot of that is due with, I don't have the graph up here today, but it is record high temperatures in this region, brushing up against the low pressure, record cold temperatures in this region, and that's creating the perfect storm, literally the perfect storm. Okay, and this global wheat threat puts supply under threat. This global, this drop in global wheat as a result of all these droughts that are going on. There's even a drought in Canada. You don't see it here. I don't think it's as bad as previous years, but it's starting again. Now, look at this housing situation. If you think that you got it good in Canada, think again. I'm sorry about the frickin' map. We're going to try to get this fixed here, guys. Look at this. Canada, this is housing price increases over the past 10 years. Okay, in Canada, it is 90%. 90%. I'm going to try to zoom in one more time here. You know who else is 90%? Only Turkey. And maybe, is that Ukraine there? No, that's not Ukraine. No, that's Ukraine. I can't remember what's place is that there. That is, I cannot see. Anyways, we have the highest rate of housing inflation in the world, pretty much. Look at Russia. All these Russians, you know, with their no debt, right? Their no debt and their trillions upon trillions in resources that they're sitting on, their housing prices have went down by 33%. Now, I know a lot of people are probably saying, yeah, but you know, what's the quality of life? Well, I don't know. I mean, to be house broke, is that any kind of life to live? You tell me. China, 8%. Canada, 90%. Now, a lot of this is in part due to, ironically, a lot of Chinese people buying up a lot of the property in Vancouver. I think in most of the urban areas, the prices of property have been going up a lot. And of course, in the US, it's not much better. So this is bad. This is real bad. Now it says here, Turkey 902%, but that's in nominal terms, okay? In actual real terms, that's because Turkey has seen some wild inflation. Canada, it's actually 148% if you factor in inflation. So this is from 2010 to 2022, 84% increase across the world. 84%. I mean, what is that if that's not a bubble? Why is that happening? Is that because the price of lumber is that much higher? Or is it just because the world, the debt bubble has reached all-time highs, the banks are insolvent, and they're going to continue to pop? We got a guy coming on the channel tomorrow, Bob Moriarty. This guy knows a lot about finance. He was a fighter pilot in Vietnam, flew 800 missions, and just a wealth of information when it comes to global finance. You guys are in for a treat. He's going to educate all of us about what is about to happen with the global financial system. Speaking of which, what's going on with global finance? Oh yeah, what's Elon promoting? Oh yeah, change the Twitter bird with the Shiba Inu because it's funny, it's corny. Is it really funny anymore? Do people care? Nope, because the price jumped, looks like 20% after he did that. It shows you that people are still motivated by greed. And there's no easy way to make money, guys. There really is no easy way. The only way to really get rich in a recession is to, wait till, everybody's completely fearful. And if you can buy the bottom, I guess you're probably going to have the best chances of your life to have those 10x moments. But it's very, very rare. We're not going to see another Tesla moment for a long, long time. Maybe there's going to be some AI company that rolls around that you can invest in early. But, it's not going to be in Doge or any of that crypto nonsense. This is what has stood the test of time, gold. And I don't get excited about the price of gold going up because it hasn't went up. The value of the dollar it's measured in has just went down. But we will see record gold prices probably in the next couple weeks, I do believe. They're even calling it, one of the major financial institutions, I can't remember which one, was saying 2,100 by the end of the second quarter. All that means is that the US dollar is going to be in the pisser. Jamie Dimon says the banking crisis is not over and will cause repercussions for years to come. See, right now, people have forgotten about the banking crisis already. The Fed came in, but all it takes is a few more dominoes to fall, and people get really scared, and the real bank runs will start. And mark my words, they will demand for the government to come in and do something. And I guarantee you that millions of people will be demanding central bank-backed digital currencies. I'm almost positive. It's the same thing with, everybody thought, you'll never convince me to carry around a device that can spy on me 24/7. You'll never convince me to put all my information online for everybody to see. And now most people can't live without that. So if they bring in these big world-changing technologies, it's always by consumer demand. So they'll create the conditions that everybody demands CBDCs. According to Bill Holter, he's a broker from Miles Franklin. I was talking about this weeks ago, that the gold brokers right now, their phones are ringing off the hook. What is interesting, he says, is we're getting more calls, but for the most part, bigger money. We're talking about multi-million-dollar orders on a daily basis, and this is different than years ago. What is going to happen is demand is going to outstrip supply. The supply will be wiped out. Now, somebody made an interesting comment on one of my videos the other day, and I had to think about this for a while because it made sense. They were saying, why would any gold broker want to part ways with gold if they thought that gold was so precious and that the price was only going to continue to go up? And my response to them was, they're probably just trying to make a margin so that they can buy more gold. That's likely what they're trying to do. But it is a valid criticism. I mean, if you thought gold was so precious, why would you sell it? Now, I do think that that is the rationale, is that they want to expand their business, they want to get more gold. But gold is not one of the most profitable businesses. In fact, it's not that profitable at all. You're talking about very slim margins made on premiums, only gained by either minting your own coins. And it's a tough market because it's very cornered and it's manipulated in a lot of ways. So you got to be careful. It's, crazy times we're living in. Okay, let's talk about we're on the topic of finance. Let's talk about this. This is what's going on in the workforce. So this is a graph, and it shows total U.S. employees 25 to 54 years old in blue, and then 55 years old and up in whatever color this is. And as you can see, there was a time, like back in the late 80s, where there was way more young people working than old people. But what's happening, and this is going to be amplified intensely if you put Japan into this kind of graph. I mean, they don't have much time left. And they don't like immigrants there. They don't take immigrants in Japan. So their society is going to collapse unless they can create robots and automation to wipe everybody's butts soon, which I don't know if they're going to be able to make it. We'll see. Maybe ChatGPT-4 will save them. So, but look at what happened here. Now you have the same amount of people, 55 plus working, as 25 plus. That's crazy. This is crazy. And maybe this has something to do with it. WHO reveals staggering infertility statistics. Isn't this insane? 1 in 6 people just can't have kids. Just completely infertile. We know that sperm counts are down, like 60% now? And so the whole overpopulation thing is likely going to be debunked at some point. I mean, they've known about this actually for some time. There was a very interesting BBC documentary that was done, presentation, that showed how as societies develop and modernize, people have less and less kids. The only downside of that, and climate activists will push back and will say, yeah, but as societies develop, you go from having a person who lives in sub-Saharan Africa who uses 1/100th of what a person in a developed society uses. Well, all of a sudden, now you've taken all of the Chinese out of the rural and you've moved them all into the urban, and they're all consuming 50 times as much. So even though you don't have population growth, you have consumption growth. So our consumption will act as an inflationary driver, even though depopulation acts as a deflationary driver, but the consumption, the increased consumption will outweigh that because, of course, we live in a disposable society that is still fueled by businesses trying to constantly increase their bottom line, and that means more planned obsolescence. There's no money in building a phone that's going to last 20 years. You got to make it only last 2 years, and that means you got to put more stuff into the dumpster. So there's something to be said about we live on a finite planet. Things are not infinite. It's not rocket science. Or as Ricky from Trailer Park Boys says, it's not rocket appliances, Julian. I love that show. It's hilarious. Okay, so this is what's going on with the Marburg virus that may well be the death of all of us. It probably won't, but you know, I mean, we just never know. 21-day incubation period. This thing is on both sides of Africa right now. I talked about it yesterday, how it's on both sides of the continent, a massive continent. The actual images that you see on the globe don't do the size justice. This is the same size distance between New York and LA. And there are already 459 people who've made contact with 20 possible cases. That's in Equatorial Guinea. And on the other side of the continent, there are 8 confirmed cases, 5 fatalities. So you're seeing a fatality rate upwards of 66%. And it's very hard to track in these places because, you know, it's just an underdeveloped society and you just don't know where this is spreading. And because it's zoonotic, it can be transmitted by animals as well. So we just don't know. The Middle Eastern countries are on high alert right now as a result of this, and there were 5 new suspected cases today. Big Billy Gates is saying, we don't need no stinking AI moratorium. I'm finally starting to get a lead on Google. He's happy because this whole ChatGPT thing is starting to put a little fire into Bing. You know, Bing, that search engine nobody uses. So he makes a valid point, though, because he's saying that if we don't do it, China is going to get ahead of us. And he makes another valid point. He says, I don't think asking any one particular group to pause solves the challenges. He says, and I don't have the exact quote here, but something along the lines of, nobody's going to stop anyways. You'd have to have all the nations stop. China's not going to stop. Japan's not going to stop. European countries aren't going to stop. Russia sure as hell ain't going to stop for anybody. So that goes back to Eliezer Yudkowsky, the founder of Machine Intelligence Research Institute, an insanely intelligent man, saying that everyone on Earth will die. Okay? This is no Blake Lemoine. Even though I'm not throwing shade on Blake Lemoine, he was the guy who left Google because he thought that the AI had gained sentience. And he went public about it, and they let him go. So we don't really know what they really have. And do you seriously think that the military, the CIA, that they would let these companies just run undeterred and do these sorts of things undeterred? Of course they wouldn't. Remember, the US military invented the internet. I strongly suspect that if there is some supercomputer somewhere which is going to have self-awareness, it's likely going to be birthed on the nation-state level, long before these corporations. I think these corporations just get the scraps. Okay, yeah, you can get it to write, you know, rap songs for them or whatever. Keep the idiots distracted. What else do we got going on here? I think I covered almost everything. I talked about the dog that died of avian flu in Canada, the first case of its kind. A necropsy was performed and indicated the dog suffered from a respiratory infection. So you got to watch your animals. I mean, this is going to be the thing now. You got to keep your animals on lockdown. So, yeah, it's a brave new world, my friends. Brave new world. Everybody's just going to be inside on their virtual reality headsets, boosted to high heaven, eating our lab meat. And most people will demand it. Most people will be put out by having to pay in cash. And, well, what do you mean I have to pay in cash when I can just tap it? Why drive when I can just let the car drive? You know, I'm getting tired of my Tesla. I know I'm running on here, but I got this Tesla last year, tax write-off, and at first I was blown away by the technology. And make no mistake, the Tesla vehicles are absolute, like nothing else you'll ever drive. It's like a spaceship, okay? It's incredibly fast. The car frickin' drives itself, but boy, is it draconian. There's a camera that faces you in the car, and if you cover that camera up, it will disengage autopilot. It says, well, if you don't let us stare at you all the time, then we're going to have to take away this autopilot because we have to make sure that you stay awake and you're not on your phone while you're using it. Okay. There's some other things, though. There's a lot of other shady business practices and things that I'm noticing more and more. So as much as I appreciate the technology, as much as I think that electronic makes perfect sense from a preparedness perspective, there's no fluids to change. You don't have to worry about changing the brakes because it has the, the recharging calipers, or what's it called? It's a thing that when instead of braking, it takes the energy in from slowing down. Anyways, there's no fluids. You can charge it via renewables. You could charge it via electricity. Of course, you'd have to have a massive solar array, but in theory, you can. You could use it in a Mad Max sense. You could ride shotgun in your own car while the car drives you. So there's a lot of things to say about it there. There's just a lot of things. I've done videos on why I think EVs are the ultimate prepper vehicle, with the exception of course, having to charge up. But, man, it's becoming more evident to me that Mr. Dogecoin is not the fun-loving character that we might all think him to be. Yeah, buy Dogecoin, says Elon. Don't buy gold, buy Dogecoin. But get your Geiger counters, get your seeds, and all your other preparedness needs. That the only reason why I sell the stuff I do at my store is because I would rely on it if my life depended on it, which it very well may. So get all the high quality stuff through CanadianPreparedness.com. Don't buy that crap food that they're trying to sell you because they know people are scared, they know people are worried. Buy the stuff that you're actually going to eat. Okay? It's going to cost a little bit more, but you'll be happy you did. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Stay up. Don't buy Dogecoin. Canadian Prepper out.